This house was built by Jesse Edwards, a father of Newberg, in 1881. In 1885, Dr. Henry John Minthorn and his family moved here upon Dr. Minthorn's appointment as the first superintendent of Friends Pacific Academy, which became George Fox University. Herbert Hoover was born in West Branch, Iowa in 1874 and orphaned at the age of 9. He moved to Oregon in 1885 to live with the Minthorns and to go to school at the academy. In 1888, Hoover moved to Salem with the Minthorns. He left Salem in 1891 to attend Stanford University as a member of its inaugural class. This house was restored by Bert Brown Barker, a childhood friend of Hoover's, and dedicated by Hoover on August 10, 1955, Hoover's 81st birthday. It contains furnishings typical of a rural doctor's home in the 1880s and has some original Minthorn furniture, including the bedroom set that Hoover used while he lived here.
This is the oldest home still standing in the town of Newberg. How do the roses smell?
Smell pretty good. There's white ones, there's red ones and pink ones. This pretty one. Got a bee in it. See the bee?
Yeah.
They have roses all around the front of the lawn too.
Very typical of the time, there's a white picket fence all around the property, and at that time that was the thing that everybody wanted, was a pretty white picket fence. And lots of roses and flowers all the way around the house. We even saw there was some lavender growing in their flower garden, and it's in bloom right now. Marge is looking at the lavender. And as we walk around the property on the sidewalk on the street, we see a gate with a very unique latch on it leading up to a walk to the house. But unfortunately the house is closed today, but we've made up our minds we're going to get to go in there sooner or later, so we'll come back shortly when it'll be open.
It said, Boyhood home of Herbert Hoover, 31st President of the United States.
Lavenders are in bloom nicely. The next door neighbor's house is very nicely landscaped, and it's huge, with some pretty rhododendrons just blooming themselves to death, and some pretty yellow roses and all sorts of other flowers. This must have been the White Picket neighborhood. Just across the street from the Hoover house, we see the Hoover Park, and it has a bunch of playground equipment here, and Marge is trying to figure it out. Some of these have been invented since she was a kid, and she doesn't really know how to work them, but it's never too late to figure it out. We're trying to see how to do it, and I think she's not doing it right. There! If there's someone that knows about this modern playground equipment, please leave Marge a message in the comments so she'll know how next time. And in the valley down below the playground equipment is very nice green lawn and a disc golf course. That we don't know how to do either. We've never tried that, but it looks like it might be kind of interesting. Maybe we'll have to learn how to do that someday. Probably this area, Herbert Hoover probably chased the old milk cow into the barn to be milked and took care of the horses here on this very hillside. In some of the books that Herbert Hoover's written, he said he didn't much care for the horses, but he tolerated them and he had to take care of them. I never got down to the creek to see if it's big enough that he could have fished there. He was known as the fishing president. This time of the year, all the flowers are in bloom, and the bees are hurrying up trying to get a little pollen from them. Well, we weren't able to go in the Hoover house, so we're going to call it and come back another day. But meanwhile, on our way back over there, we decided to go by Molalla River State Park. I hear there's a rookery there where there's a whole bunch of blue heron nests. So we'll go by and see if we can see them. I don't think we'll be able to see them because they're across the river and you need a boat to get to them. We see a patch of the Willamette Valley daisies, a real beauty of a patch of them in full bloom. They're kind of rare here now. It seems like that since they changed farming techniques, they've almost become extinct. And there was also a lupin that grew very well here in the valley, and I haven't seen much of that at all lately. They're out mowing the grass, and this is a really nice place for people to have a picnic. And there's the Willamette River right below us. This is where the Molalla River and the Willamette River run together, but we're not going to have time to go down and see where they go together, so we'll just take some pictures here of the Willamette after the Molalla River has run into it. And here again is a station where you can borrow a life jacket, use it while you're here, and then don't forget to bring it back. So since we're here, we're going down and take a look at the Canby Ferry as it crosses the Willamette River. This ferry is a remnant of what there used to be. There used to be lots of ferries to cross the Willamette River, but now there are only 3 left, and this is one of them. And this is probably one of the smaller ones, but it still runs across very nicely, and for a small fee you can go across the Willamette River in this ferry boat. And it's really fun and really interesting. Today's an exceptionally pretty day with the trees and green trees in the background and the reflection of the Willamette River as it roars by almost at flood stage. Nowadays, the ferry has fairly powerful electric motors to take it back and forth across the Willamette River. Where it used to be they just turned it into the current and let the current pull them across, but that's all in the past. This is probably much faster and more efficient. And here it comes with 1 car aboard. They'll pull over here right on the ramp and let the barrier down that holds the car in, car will drive off and then he's back after another load again. The cables stretch across the river in this spot, and now the ferry will come up for a landing right on the edge of the road here. Then back after we check the ferry out, then back to the Hoover
Yeah, so that's
house.
a hair wreath. That one's made of
He's
human
checking
hair
it out.
Yeah. And this is our portrait of Tom.
Oh,
So this space wasn't off limits to children. It was a lot more casual. And this door behind you is actually the door they would use on an everyday basis.
oh, to go in and out.
Yeah, so the parlor would just be closed off and they would use this door on an everyday basis.
Oh yeah.
Important to this room is the stove. The family didn't have any running water or electricity, so the stove was their main source of heat and energy in the home. And one of Herbert Hoover's main chores was chopping wood and resupplying it to all the stoves in the home.
Oh, wow, that's a neat stove too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's an 1880s stove, and everything in the home is 1880s artifacts. It's all period accurate. It just didn't all belong to the family. So.
Oh yeah.
And these pictures are from the museum opening in 1955. So Hoover's in that left-hand corner right there. It opened on his 81st birthday, and he would live to be 90 and died in 1964. So he lived a long time.
Oh, and this is when they opened it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the opening.
Boy, that picture has a lot of people in it.
I know. The whole town turned out for the museum opening.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what year again was that?
So this is 1955.
That was in 55.
Mm-hmm. And that's like in the 50s around the Parlor. It was based off of a photograph of him.
Oh yeah.
So he didn't sit for it.
Oh yeah.
And then these pictures that you're checking out are from his wedding to his wife, Lou Henry. So after Newberg, Hoover lived in Salem with the Minthorns, and then he went to college at Stanford, which is where he met his wife. They both studied geology, which for Hoover allowed him to become a very successful and wealthy mining engineer. And his wife was the first woman to graduate with a geology degree from Stanford. Shelf for all books written by Herbert Hoover. He wrote over 40 books in his lifetime, so he was a very prolific writer.
Oh.
And he wrote on a lot of subjects. It wasn't just like political theory, it was also like his memoirs and reflections while fishing, so he was pretty well-rounded in that way.
Oh, I didn't realize that Hoover was that educated, you know, to really do all that.
Was this the kitchen stove? Or?
Yeah, so this is the kitchen. The stove is not original, but the white kitchen cabinet is.
Well, that's a neat cabinet.
Yeah.
And originally the kitchen would have actually been a separate building. It would have been a couple feet away from the home. And that was standard because kitchens were fire hazards. So if your kitchen catches on fire, just that burns, not the rest of your house.
Oh,
so that's why it looks a little different. It's because originally it would have been its own little building.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Hoover's aunts and his two, he had 3 cousins while he lived here, and 2 of them were closer to his age, and they were all girls, so they would have spent a decent amount of their time in the kitchen. The Minthorns were like upper middle class, but they didn't keep any extra help or servants around the house, so they would have done all the cooking and cleaning themselves.
Oh yeah. And that's a cherry pitter, is it?
It's a apple core.
Oh, an apple core.
core.
Yeah.
Oh,
apple peeler and core. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then this is,
This is like the back porch.
oh, the back porch and,
Originally, this would have looked a little different too. It would have been more open, and they would have had a back garden in their backyard. You can see the well through the slats. So
yeah.
Hoover would have spent a lot of his time outside, and the family would have done all of their hygienic stuff out here. So bathing and laundry, that all happened outside.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
There's an old scythe and,
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, the little boiler.
This is one of my favorite things.
Uh-huh.
You're close in a basin like that,
Oh,
and then you move it
There's
around.
the old hop baskets. You know,
Yes.
when I wasn't very big, my sister took me hop picking, and we had these great big old hop baskets that we had.
Yeah.
to pick hops in, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
recognize that.
that's the boiler they put on the wood stove, I think, to heat water. Yeah.
Yeah. When they moved to Salem, he was very much responsible for like his uncle's team of horses that he used. But it's funny because Hoover wrote in his memoirs about how much he hated horses. He thought they were super gross. He didn't like taking care of them. So it's kind of funny. That was one of the main things he did, though, was help with the horses.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, and they would have had cattle.
Somebody milked the cow, too, I suppose.
And then we have our butter churn in the kitchen right there as well. So take your milk and make some.
Oh, sure. There's the churn.
And these like big wooden things on the cabinet right here that are standing up, those are butter molds. So on the counter.
Oh, these right here.
Yeah, so these
Oh,
are
you
butter
could have
molds.
fancy butter.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very
butter
fancy
molds.
too, because this little thing right here is a butter stamp. So it'd be
Oh.
really big and it would be pretty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They took a lot of care to do that. And what's this machine here?
It's a meat grinder.
Oh, that's a meat
Oh.
grinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meat grinder on this side and apple corer on the other side. So
Oh, yeah.
And the back here, this is a coffee grinder, and this is also a coffee grinder. Those are two different kinds of coffee grinders we have.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we've got our iron as well. So
Oh, yeah.
cast iron was typical for the time, obviously. So we've got all that stuff.
Right.
Look at
Yeah.
her. Cast ironware.
Yeah.
Nothing in that room is original, but it's a very typical 1880s girls' bedroom. On the right-hand side, that quilt is a friendship quilt, so girls in the community would get together and sew individual portions of it, and then sew it all together. And the little centerpieces has their name embroidered on it. So.
Oh, and then did they make those out of old clothes and stuff like that?
I'm not sure exactly where they sourced their material, but it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
That's
Oh. Uh-huh. Wow. Well,
Original furniture, which is pretty great. So that's the furniture he used, and the fishing gear in the corner are also his.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
Oh,
learned to fly fish while in Newberg, and that became a lifelong hobby for him. He was
I
sometimes
see.
called the fishing president.
He has a dog.
Yes, they had like 5 or 6 dogs actually while in the White House, so they had a bunch of dogs.
Oh, wow.
I guess
Yeah.
it's proof he was a dog person over a cat person, probably, right?
yeah.
Uh-huh. Right.
So how did he get up there to where he was being nominated for president?
It was put in the 1950s, and it's the closest they could get to the original wallpaper. So
Yeah.
it's 1950s recreation of 1880s wallpaper.
Yeah.
It's the closest they could get to the original wallpaper, and they did have wallpaper basically from the house's building to when it became a museum. So actually, when the process of like putting this wallpaper in, they did get to see the original wallpaper, but it was like behind other layers of more wallpaper.
Actually, it's his middle name.
That's Herbert
That's my dad's
Hoover's-
middle name too, actually.
Herbert Hoover's kids, is it? You say?
Yeah.
Yes, those are his kids.
And his wife.
Oh, yeah.
The older boy totally looks like him when you look at other pictures.
I'll get
of
over this
Herbert
way.
Hoover.
Oh, yeah.